Hey, everyone. Thank God it's Friday. We've got a lot to go over. It's been a busy week between drafts and debates and everything else going on in the world, but there's a ton going on in tech. You're going to hear it all here on Techstrong, gang. Hi, everyone. Welcome back here to Techstrong, gang. It's been a heck of a week with a lot going on in the world, and I, for one, am happy it's Friday. We've got a great lineup of gang members today, as well as some great juicy topics to jump on. But let me first introduce you to our gang, and then we'll jump in there. We've got some of our Futurum friends on with us today. I'm very, very excited. Making his debut on Techstrong, gang, is our friend Cory Johnson. Cory, welcome, first of all. And for people maybe who aren't familiar with Cory in our gang audience, why don't you give them a little bit about you?
Well, when you get the gang together, whether it's you or Kendrick Lamar, I'm here for you. So I've been covering technology for a long time, both as a journalist and as a hedge fund manager. And at Futurum, I serve as the chief market strategist, where I get to kind of look at all of the research that all of our great analysts put out and try to figure out the kind of stock market overlay here from my perch in the Ferry Building in San Francisco.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us here today. Joining Cory, some of our regular gang members I want to introduce from his perch up in the Rocky Mountains. Speaking of perches, it's our CTO and Futurum CTA, Mitch Ashley. Hey, Mitch, welcome.
Good to be here, and I brought some help from Colorado. We haven't introduced her yet, but we have the Colorado wing here.
We've got a Colorado connection, because you can never have enough people in Colorado. You don't know who's high, who's not, who's on, who's off.
You got to have a backup, right?
Well, you got to have a backup. She's actually been on the show before as part of Infrastructure Matters, but she happens to also be a CTA at Futurum Group. It's Camberley Bates. Hey, Camberley, again, for people who may not be familiar, why don't you give them a little of your background?
Well, I joined Futurum, it's about a year and a half. That has been a rocket ship to the crew. And it's great to have Techstrong on the team to be streaming with you. This is a lot of fun. My background, if you guys know, I'm a data person. So I think we're going to be talking a little bit about data and Gen AI today, aren't we?
I think we are, and I'm looking forward to hearing your views on that, and welcome to the gang. Last but not least, he's not in his usual post to the left of me here. He's still up in New York, his hometown, but it's our Chief Content Officer, Mike Vizard. Hey, Mike, welcome.
Good to see you. I am actually on a perch 36 floors above Manhattan, so there you have it.
Very cool. Very cool. Welcome. So, guys, let's jump right into our Friday lineup. First thing is, it looks like we've got a story over on Techstrong AI around Oracle is turning LLMs into a database feature. I, for one, say, what took so long? It seemed like a no-brainer to me. But, Mike, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, it seems like this may be the beginning of a bigger trend. What they're saying is twofold. One is LLMs come in small, medium, and large. And if it's small or medium or maybe not so large, it can fit in the database, and it's going to run as a service up on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. And then they made an effort to point out that this approach does not require GPUs that are hard to find, hard to come by, and are kind of expensive to run. So, Camberley, let's get started with you and your impressions of this. But it seems like databases, data engineers, and the cloud, it's all coming back to the data.
Yep, it always seems to come back to the data. A couple of thoughts with this is, first of all, we're moving the compute to the data. That's been a trend. That is a trend that we've learned that we've got to do, because the data is so big and data is got gravity. So we don't want to do that. And that's what Ellison is doing. Secondly, the second point that you brought up is the CPU being able to support the training or the RAG or whatever. That is definitely what we've seen. In fact, our lab, our Signum 6.5 lab, has done some analysis and testing on those kind of environments. And we do find that CPUs in certain situations are good enough. They are providing the capacity, the speed and the processing that is needed in order to do the training, whether it's RAG or inferencing in those environments. So not everything needs a GPU. So this is a logical kind of process. And I think like any other technology where initially sometimes we're throwing a lot of capacity, a lot of processing at it, we find unique ways to streamline the process and the cost. And I think this is one of the first ones that we're starting to see is how do you streamline this and make it more accessible to more people in the market.
It's super interesting. I follow this one closely, and I want to admit to my bias because I'm an Oracle shareholder, and the stock has performed fantastically, which the Johnson family is very happy about. But it was interesting to hear the conversations in the last few conference calls by Larry Ellison, the chief technology officer and founder of Oracle, former CEO, talking about how the only constraint they have to building data centers, which they're building like crazy in all sizes all over the world, is the number of GPUs they can get from NVIDIA and how they're buying every single one they could get. And that was, I think those comments are from 6 months ago or so. But the process continues. So this is an interesting development here because the suggestion we got in the conference call was that Oracle was going to buy every GPU they could at whatever cost. And you could see the reflection in the gross profit margins from NVIDIA, where they're charging their customers a fortune for these products instead of maybe saying, hey, we're only going to make a 30% profit on these things. Forget that. They're charging as much as they can, and their customers have been willing to pony up for them. So there's an interesting twist here is if CPUs are enough a lot of the time, you wonder what that might mean if the Blackwell and other next gen NVIDIA products are so expensive.
Well, I think you can't use CPUs for all AI functionality. I think if you're using CPUs for an LLM, which is embedded within the Oracle database, you can do that. But if you're just going to run general purpose AI stuff, I think you still with a huge LLM made up of the body of the internet or something. So we're talking Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude level. I think you still might need, the GPUs. Interestingly, though, Cory, is also, they struck this deal supposedly with Elon for what is it, $10 billion worth of GPU hosting over, on the Oracle cloud. Someone's going to use those GPUs, right? Someone's got to source those GPUs, and then someone has to use those GPUs. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But to me, though, this is really. This was as a consolidation of unnecessary steps because for too long I've been hearing from our friends in the operationalizing AI space about, well, we get this data set and we put it into a vector database and then we inject that data, use that data in the vector database to create an LLM, and then we use that LLM against an AI front end, and voila, you've got your own chat interface or your own AI interface. It seemed to me, why wouldn't we just do the LLM with the database and you're done? And if you could do that, and in doing that, eliminate the GPU element of it, wow, that's hot stuff. I think that, it cuts out a middleman, it cuts out a step there somewhere, makes it cheaper to run from a CPU advantage, and makes it quicker to just, look, I'll put my data into the database and today and a second later or whenever it's now my LLM and I'm off and running with like specialized LLMs or SLMs or whatever we want to call them. Mitch, you're more wired into this than I am. Am I oversimplifying it?
No, I think you were right on both a kind of infrastructure level, whether it's not only the hardware, but the infrastructure of the database platform. The flip side of that coin is the workflow that happens. And I think that's where people are focusing now, because that's part of how do we create production ready. We've been doing machine learning and AI expert systems now, adding Gen AI to that. But if you look at the process of how people work, it's involved with a lot of the same people in creating ML models and algorithms and then prepping data that goes into the database used by those models. So there's something called feature. They call them features. It's not features like a capability, but a feature in ML is the algorithm and the data that's been assessed and tweaked by data engineers and data analysts. And then there's also a domain expert in whatever that model is a domain on. But that flows into a pipeline too. And so if you can't do that within an Oracle environment, you're doing it somewhere else. So now they can put that workflow and use some of those same data engineers that are doing database work, and data analysts that can also contribute to the AI workflow. So this to me is all part of maturation of AI into not only the infrastructure, but into how we work and how we create applications and the flow of software models and the data that supports that, whether it's LLMs or regular database.
But the vectorization has to happen, right? I mean, that's still a necessary step there. You can't give out, after your database is created, after your data is there, you've got to vectorize it in order to access it for the magic to happen.
That's the performance. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I think we're seeing a separation of concerns. There is the training of the model, which requires GPUs and parallel processing because you're trying to play with massive amounts of data. Then there's the running of the inference engine when the application and the model get into a production environment. And that can run more easily on many things other than GPUs. I know NVIDIA is making a play for that business, but the most inference engines that I know don't run on a GPU. So I think what Oracle is saying is take the LLM, stick it in the database to Camberley's point where we're bringing the compute to the data and run the inference engines on anything but a GPU.
Mike, I would add to that another layer. We have a training of a very large language model, which really will require the GPUs and the big environment. Then the next level down is the training, probably using RAG methodologies or something like that. That's within the organization. So if you look at the kind of things that the enterprises are implementing right now, they're training customer service applications. They're doing some training of maybe some development coding capabilities. And they're containerized and they're smaller in their environment relative to a large language model. So I can train that possibly with possibly CPU, possibly with less GPUs. Or maybe what I'm going to do is, use some of the time sharing or whatever that I have or the services that I have with Oracle on there and then transfer it over to the inference engine and then move into the processor. So there's this, as you were talking, Cory and Mitch, there's that process, that MLOps process. It's not just the data process, but it's the process of developing the application that, delivers on the Gen AI.
Camberley, one of the things I found interesting is you didn't see some of the things you see in other announcements. Like when Amazon talks about Bedrock, they talk about Llama and all the Cloud and all the variation of LLMs that they support of their portfolio of the platform. In the Oracle announcement, at least what I read, they didn't mention those. They just talked about LLMs in general. So what you're asking your customers do, and these are obviously going to be large enterprise customers in most cases, is relying on Oracle to source those for you and embed those or bring those in the platform, which I'm sure they will. But it's still the wild, wild west of what models you want to use and which one should we and what do we experiment with and what do we augment with RAG and improve performance with vector databases. So I think that's an important part of this. There was mention of kind of a consulting role that Oracle can provide to help customers in implementing their AI applications. So that may be a real big benefit that they can provide directly since they know the Oracle environment so well. A lot of third parties do that on other clouds like Google and Amazon and Azure.
Well, and that is one of the limitations of these curated environments is where you don't have access to this rapidly changing environment that we're constantly saying there's a new algorithm, there's a new LLM, or there's another foundational model that I want to bring in. There's another tool that I want to use. So can Oracle keep up with all that movement? Yeah, they can. They're big. They're very, very big, so they can keep up with it. But that's kind of that curation piece of it that these guys are wanting to have, that the data scientists are looking to have. It's like, I need the different options to be able to maximize my tuning capability.
So, Cory, are we shorting NVIDIA stock now because we don't need so many GPUs or what?
I don't give investment advice, but I probably would not advise anyone to short NVIDIA. No, I mean, I am looking for the turning point at some point with NVIDIA where we're going to, one is going to come this year when the growth rate, which has been astronomical, remains astronomical, but maybe a lower orbit than what it was, if I can stick with the metaphor, And I think that, I do wonder about a company. I'm fascinated by NVIDIA. It's a unique story in my lifetime of covering technology. And one of the things I'm fascinated by is their willingness to charge their customers whatever the heck they want. And I have yet to hear a customer complain about it, but I think that we will hear customers complain about it because all the profits are going towards this company and creating artificial intelligence of any stripe at a loss is okay right now. But at some point, these queries, these things that are using 10 times the database size and processing power and electrical power and generating, if a search costs Google, I don't know, 3 cents per search, that costs $3 per AI search, at some point, someone's going to have to pay for this. And right now, all the money's going to NVIDIA. Someone's going to get pissed off about that at some point.
I think they already are getting ticked off because they don't have enough money to fund all the AI projects they want to fund. So they have to narrow the scope because I can't get a GPU. And the budget dollars are hard to find.
I disagree. You know what? Basic market principles. What's something worth? Whatever someone's willing to pay for it. And
you have a long-time customer relationships matter too. I mean, that's
Yeah, but you can't blame NVIDIA for striking while the iron's hot. Right? What are they supposed to do? Hold back production until they have more competitors and competition and prices go down, so they'll have some dry powder. Now's the time to make hay for them, and they're making hay. God bless them. But I think the bigger issue, guys, is you will see when competition comes in from other chip vendors. I think that will bring down prices. And if, Mike, to your point, if Google decides that, hey, I'm not willing to do $3 in AI search because I can't monetize it versus the 3 cents a regular search cost, and I'm just not going to do as many AI searches. But that's not the way this market's been unfolding.
Yep.
Right? We're still in the mad rush, overhype stage, and it's not. I think if you're talking about NVIDIA pricing going down, you're probably looking second half of 2025.
Right.
I don't think you're exactly going to get Ellison or Antonio Neri criticizing Jensen for making a profit.
No.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, well,
Larry's not known to be a small spender.
But Elon Musk may criticize them because after all, he thinks AI should not be.
I would just point out.
Yeah.
I don't really care what those guys think. Customers are not stupid. They're going to look at this stuff. They're going to do the math, and they're going to figure out where to put those workloads, and they'll force the issue themselves.
Where the pressure might come from is the federal government.
I'll tell you one thing
They're
about
looking at it and saying the little guy, the smaller firms don't have access because it's all the big tech guys that get all the access. So that's the only.
So is the EU? So Camberley, is the EU going to find them too? Then I mean, because the EU wants to create a fair and even marketplace. They want to unbundle teams and everything else.
I don't know. The EU kind of is quite mysterious to me about how they're operating. So I think they're going to strangle some of their competitiveness by what they're doing over there. That's my opinion, but that's not a knowledgeable opinion. That's a personal opinion.
Well, we're all entitled to our opinions. I'll tell you who I think comes out a winner here is the Oracle Cloud, right? Our friend Stephen Dickens, who was on yesterday, right? He loves touting the Oracle Cloud. Cory, I think he's a shareholder too. But that being
come on in,
said,
the water's warm.
Yeah, but that being said, look, there's a lot of people say, but they're the number 4. If you're not in the top 3, get out. But when you look at the, Microsoft Azure cloud or the GCP cloud, and you take out Office 365 and Google Workplace, and look at just, third-party people using that cloud, not the Office suites, Oracle's not that far behind. And if they can, jump the shark with this LLM inside the database, come here for your AI, it could shake that market up.
But I think when you apply your rule, Alan, your top 3 rule, you have to kind of look at it in 2 directions. One is enterprise. Enterprise is Oracle and Azure, as well as the kind of broader market, developer-centric, technical, even middle and smaller companies. Not that they don't have enterprises too, but that's the Google and the traditionally AWS cloud. So the fact that they're fourth overall, they're in one or two in terms of enterprises.
They're all squishy about what they throw into their cloud operations and the cloud number they want to report. All of them, with the exception of Amazon.
I don't think it's unlikely that Amazon, Microsoft, and Google will make a very similar announcement to what Oracle just announced in a matter of days, if not weeks. And, because it's a great idea, but it's not rocket science.
Oracle's just got better PR people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they always have.
Deborah Hellinger, nobody.
Spoken like a shareholder, Cory.
Guys, we're going to take a break here on that one, Mitch. We're going to take a break on Techstrong Gang. We're coming back with the AI impact of processor architecture and high bandwidth memory and some earnings news. Right here, straight away. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hey, everyone. Welcome back here to Techstrong Gang. We're having some great discussion today. Our next topic, Micron released earnings reports, and it's been a lot of talk about AI impact of processor architectures and high bandwidth memory and these kinds of things. Mike, tell us, what do you think here?
Yeah. It's been a long time since we chatted about Micron or anybody in the processor space. They announced some what appeared initially at least to be some great numbers, but then they got punished by Wall Street for reasons I never understand. But Cory, walk us through what's going on here with AI and the impact on processors and in general how the market's viewing these companies these days.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the results. I did a drill down earnings report on which people can find after they're done watching this entire show on the Futurum Group YouTube page, as well as on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, whatever. We put these things all over the place, YouTube Shorts. But it was a really strong quarter for this company. And if you needed to be convinced of the cyclicality of the DRAM market in the world, you certainly see it now, because this is a company that went from losing boatloads of money for about a year and a half to suddenly starting to make money with operating profits, but really fantastic, better than 70% revenue growth. And then most of that's on the backs of DRAM. They have NAND flash. It's about 30% of their business, but about 60% of their business is DRAM. And the DRAM business is doing very well for all the reasons we know, right? The cell phone market's coming back. The PC market's coming back. Of course, there's build out of AI data centers that use, the AI PC, for example, uses about 15% more DRAM than existing PCs. And existing PCs use more DRAM than they have ever before. So you see this increase. But the real excitement in this quarter was about high bandwidth DRAM and high bandwidth memory. And in the quarter that they just reported, they sold their first high bandwidth memory of about $100 million worth of memory. And that's on about a $6.3 billion quarter. So it's not a huge chunk of this quarter's numbers, but it's the most exciting part because it's growing like crazy. So they said in the conference call, they sold 100 million in the most recent quarter. They're going to sell 1 billion by the end of the year. Well, there's only 2 quarters left in the year. I'm not good at math, but that suggests to me 900 million split by 2 quarters. They're going to go from about 100 million to maybe 400 million next quarter to about 500 the following quarter. Just incredible. To multi-billions next year in high bandwidth memory. And they think that they will get to similar market share to what they've been at. So with DRAM, well, that's about 20 to 30%, call it 25%. If they get to 25% of high bandwidth memory, this is a much more profitable company going into this surge in AI PCs, AI data center happening right now, and maybe recovering the cell phone market. Micron's in an entirely different place. So let's get, Mike, to your mention of what the market did. So the market sold the stock off about 9% or immediately. After it was trading down about 5%. Then it started to recover that takes us all the way back to the stock price of, last week. So it's not that much punishment, really. What we're really seeing here is a company where the stock is up about 115% in a year. It's just had a bit of a remarkable move in Micron because everything's going great for them right now.
I wonder, though, if the market's not punishing them because they're not buying into the future numbers. They've rewarded them for their terrific turnaround today, but looking at the hockey stick, they're not on that ice because they've had a great run, Cory, as you've said, but that's baby stuff compared to what they're projecting.
You get one Stanley Cup in Florida, and all of a sudden you drop.
I got hockey stuff in June. For the record, I'm a long-suffering New York Rangers fan.
Okay? Am I?
I don't wish the Panthers bad. I'm happy they won, but I really wanted the Rangers to beat them. So,
all right, but let me challenge the narrative of the market punishing them. The stock's up 110% this year. It gave up about 3%, 5% after earnings.
That's a slap on the wrist.
So, Cory, one of the questions that I would have here is when I did do a quick read through the transcript. I didn't hear the earnings call, but and one of the questions that came back was qualifications. They're quals. And so they're qualified with NVIDIA. And, all of that is going to NVIDIA. There's one client. And whenever you have one client, that scares the crap out of me. So they're saying the question was, where are you with the other quals? And that answer wasn't definitive. Partially, I would think, because who are you going to qual with? You're going to.
Well, it also doesn't matter because the other thing you heard in the conference call over and over again is they're sold out. They're sold out this year. All their allocation for next year is sold out for 2025. And there was an interesting thing in the conference call where they warned, really. They said, look, our capital expenditures are going to go way up. They're going to be about 30% of revenues. So I went back and looked at, capital expenditures as a percentage of revenues. And for the last 3 or 4 years, they've been about 30%. So if they're saying they're going to have a meaningful increase in CapEx, and they're saying it's still going to be at 30%, they didn't use the word still. I'm using the word still. What that really means, they're going to have a meaningful acceleration of revenues. And so they're going to get the revenue acceleration of profitability. They're sold out for high bandwidth memory, even though they're going to be investing in CapEx to get more high. They can take all their time they want with qualifications, at least into next year.
Interesting.
Says
Mike, I see there's also a Techstrong AI story related to this around Lenovo.
Yeah, we just call that out because Lenovo is, starting to bring to market both PCs with AI coprocessors or whatever they're going to call them, neural processing units, I think. Plus, they actually are starting to ship some servers with liquid cooling around it to take care of the fact that all this AI stuff is going to drive the heat ratios up dramatically. So, Camberley, I don't know if you've been looking at any of this stuff, but are the fundamental architectures of the systems that we rely on changing?
Yes, they are. Well, and they've been changing for quite some time. I mean, the shipping with liquid cool is not new for Lenovo. They've been doing that for a while because they've also had to they've been serving the HPC market for a long time. So now they've shifted over to this generative AI space, which needs different technologies. The AI PC, the big stuff with there is that we're going to see a very huge turnover of PCs over the next, 4 or 5 years. So we've got them aging out, and the AI PCs seem to be the ones that are going to go through, which, it's going to be normal to have a souped up engine, just like, any time that you're upgrading your systems. So that's happening there. And then Lenovo is working to, they've always been a leader in HPC. They've always been and they're going to be a leader in AI. We haven't heard them as big in the market as we have some of the other server vendors that are out there. But I think they're going to hammer down on this and bringing the solutions to the market and talking to the market about AI everywhere and the capabilities that they'll have. So we'll see a wide variety of offerings in terms of configurations as well as integrated stacks coming from them over the course of the next year.
We heard that from Micron on the call yesterday, too, to bring it back to Micron again, which is they said, and I never believe any one company about these things. Look for lots of data points. And they continue to say that AI PC second half 2024 and into 2025, and that we hear that from more and more companies. We start to believe, and we're already seeing the stuff on the market. I've been enjoying our colleagues Patrick Moorhead and Daniel Newman talking about Patrick just got a Surface with AI on board and Copilot on board. He's super excited about it. So I'm following his tweets even more rapidly than I have in the past, because I want to see what that experience is of the AI PC without spending my own money.
Well, we brought in a couple of AI PCs into the Signal 65 lab so early on. They're here because we're starting to play around with them and experiment with what we can do with them. I know that Russ Fellows has got one, Keith Townsend, I think somebody else has brought one in as well to do the testing on those systems. So really, really excited about them and what they can do. I mean, we talked about in the first segment about how this market is changing. If you can imagine, I can do all of my testing capability and some of my initial data science kind of work on my PC and then load it up to the Oracle Cloud to run it over there. I've now streamlined my operations as well.
I'm excited about the idea that Alan will spin up an avatar next year and interview himself and talk himself around both sides of an issue. It'll be great.
Mike, there are days like doing that now.
I was going to say, it doesn't take an AI PC to do that, does it, Alan?
Yeah. I've been doing that for years. On the Lenovo front, though, interestingly, I believe there's been some shakeup at Lenovo recently, hasn't there? At the president, CEO level or something like that. I remember seeing something.
Yeah, Kirk Skagen just left. I don't know what that was all about. I mean, he was running, the server and the storage and those kind of pieces and reporting into Flynn. But we don't have a definitive what that means or anything. But it is a change over there. I think part of that is they're very, very much so working to focus on this AI and coming out into the market and being a force into the market. And I think we're going to see quite a bit out of them.
Yeah, I will tell you, kudos to Microsoft, because you know what? They took this bull by the horns and they seem to, they're first to market almost on this AI PC thing, and they're putting some wood behind it. And if it does turn out to really be something more than just marketing, more power to them till the EU probably.
I'm not doing kudos to Microsoft. I spent 3 hours yesterday trying to link a shared document in Word to a shared Excel spreadsheet, and it wouldn't work, and the fonts came out all screwed up.
But that hasn't worked.
Kudos.
That hasn't worked for 30 years.
Yeah, I know. Control-Alt-Delete. Microsoft, take your kudos.
Embed and play. What was the different kinds of copy and paste or special paste where you're embedding this?
I saw everything except for Lippy yesterday.
Yeah. To go into that AI PC uplift into the market, the other company that is benefiting from this is Dell. And Michael Dell talked about, I think he said 24 or 28,000 PCs that they're going to be seeing shipping, because of all the transition that's going to be happening. So they're definitely going to benefit from, the enterprise IT inside as well as the client side.
Did you see the chart in, sorry, Mike. Did you see the chart in the most recent quarterly report from Dell that talked about their market share of high-end PCs? And they've gone from single digits, as I recall, something like better than 20% of the most profitable sector in the PC world, as they've maintained, I think, top 3 market share of all PCs. But you want to be where the money is, and they are where the money is, and that's really cool to see for Dell.
That's Dell.
I think we're going to hide a massive amount of flawed software design behind these AI agents that are going to be running on these PCs. So you can just tell the AI agent what you want to have happen, and you'll never have to deal with copy and paste or whatever else it is again.
But 10 years from now, is it just going to be this generation's Clippy?
Possibly. But I think it's going to be better Clippy. But, you'll remember it as Clippy, but that generation won't know what you're talking about.
Which it goes for a lot of what I talk about.
It's a good point, though, Alan. It's got to be a markedly different experience with Copilot. Otherwise, it's just a subtle, okay, it's got faster hardware and it's got AI in it, but what's it doing for me? I think that's the challenge with AI is you better deliver a better experience.
Not parlor tricks.
Right. Yeah. Otherwise, it's marketing hype and people are already suspicious about that.
Well, and Microsoft has never been good at markedly different experiences.
No, exactly. Except changing the menu.
They try to keep every experience kind of consistent. Anyway, hey, we got to take a break right here on Techstrong Gang. We'll be back with our next segments are regarding a translation from rivets to quacks. Stay tuned.
I'm Bonnie Schneider, sustainability contributor to the Techstrong Group. I'm excited to introduce you to a groundbreaking new initiative from Techstrong Research, the Sustainability Pulse Meter. The Pulse Meter offers valuable insights into how environmental responsibility factors into tech purchasing decisions for key players in the industry. Position your company as a leader in the industry and differentiate from your competitors with the Sustainability Pulse Meter, offered exclusively from Techstrong Research.
All right, folks, and we're back, and we're talking about our third segment, which involves the acquisition of an outfit called Quack, which is a provider of an MLOps platform, by JFrog, which is one of the leaders in the DevOps space. And it feels like MLOps and DevOps are going to merge. But Mitch, what's your take here?
Well, I think you nailed it. And this is what I was talking about earlier. JFrog is very well known, and of course, early in the DevOps space with Artifactory, and now provide more of a kind of complete platform for the entire SDLC. And it's a recognition of what I was saying before about how machine learning development occurs in the development of data and models and algorithms. And how does that work within a larger software factory, a larger software workflow? And I think that's a really wise purchase, even though their name is Quack. You can make lots of jokes about ducks and frogs. So maybe we'll see some ducks at the next user conference, Alan. But I think it's spot on kind of move to make, because it's a recognition that AI, particularly ML, is part of all of our applications more and more. It's part of our development process. And you get this impedance mismatch if you have an entirely different process at a different pace that's separate from your DevOps workflow, your DevOps pipelines. And then you got to figure out somehow to merge that. And then what happens when you have to fix something that requires some tweaking of the algorithms for ML, as well as some code or parts of your applications and data elsewhere? We have to blend these workflows together, even though they have unique differences between each. So I think CTO Yoav Landman has made a good move here.
Yov's a good man. So first of all, Mitchell, in terms of the user conference, Swamp Up, their user conference, is coming up in Austin in, I think, early September. I'll be there. I've been covering JFrog, and just full disclosure, Yov and Shlomi and Fred, the three co-founders, are.
And I'll be there with you. So
are you coming on that one? Cool.
I will be there, yeah.
So, it should be interesting to see if they got a lot of ducks mixed in with the frogs. But beyond that, though, in many ways, the JFrog story mimics the entire DevOps adventure. When DevOps first came out, we had a lot of point solutions: Chef, Puppet, Ansible, Jenkins, and CloudBees, and these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we saw the move to platform. GitLab probably was the big mover there. They, from the get-go, said Bianchi wanted a full-on platform, a soup to nuts DevOps experience. GitHub went from being just a repository to offering that platform as well. So did CloudBees, and of course JFrog did too. As you mentioned, JFrog was Artifactory. It was a repo for artifacts. And they, brought in JFrog pipelines and introduced the whole CI/CD thing. I feel like we spoke about this recently, but
it was on our podcast. We talked about it.
That's what it was, Mitch. It was on DevOps, and you can get our take on this on DevOps chats. Most recently, over the last, let's say, 3 years, JFrog's been really focused in on security, because the big move was from DevOps to DevSecOps, again, industry-wide. And JFrog brought a lot of security. They had some, but they brought a lot of security expertise to bear on this, and it enhanced that platform move. If you're looking at, okay, where did the platform go next? MLOps, observability, if we can call it that as well, is kind of the next logical place to move this platform, right? If you're going to have one provider, one throat to choke, you want it all the way from development or platform planning through development, testing, deployment, and then the feedback loops and all of that. So this to me is just a great acquisition by JFrog that enhances that platform play. Right?
Well,
we're underestimating the cultural issues here. The MLOps users, as far as I can tell, are a bunch of data science folks who largely come out of academia, and we're about to throw these people into the same room with some hardcore software engineers who are kind of like, obsessed about performance and making everything run as tightly as possible. And I got a feeling this is going to be a cultural issue more than a technical issue.
There's definitely that, Mike. I mean, they're two different kinds of ducks, right? You have to walk like a duck, et cetera. Definitely different skills. And I think as much as the work is very different with the whole feature development and feature store and how that kind of gradually builds the model into a place where you can get it ready to release. I think the point is not making them flip over to, here you go, we got to use all these different tools from JFrog. Your article does a really nice job. In addition to what you wrote, there's a diagram in there that's showing how Artifactory can serve as a feature store for models and inference training, et cetera, to be part of that. Maybe it's an adjunct to one that's already exists, or maybe that's for somebody that's starting to do ML can use that as well. But on top of that is, of course, their JFrog X-Ray and their security offerings. So you start to blend some of the security issues into this as well. So I think it has the potential to address several, let's call them out-of-band issues. Like, what do we do about security? And do our AI data experts know what's happening in our security architecture for our applications that these things are being used in? And can we make that transition easier so they don't have to know a lot about it?
See, that
no one's writing code right now without. Oh, sorry. Well, I say no one's writing code right now without.
Hold on, one of us. Only one of us can talk.
That real quick.
Mike, you go first, then you, Cory.
All right. Just letting you know that diagram saved me 1,000 words. So there you go.
There you go.
Cory.
Okay, Cory.
I like that. Omit needless words. Include needing diagrams. I think that no one's writing code without using AI right now. And so this JFrog was kind of sitting out there without the tools that potential competitors were offering. So they had to get there with some kind of AI offering. We'll see, how this integrates with what they're offering for developers to use across the board and all the things that they're doing. But again, no one's coding without AI right now. And so they've had to have some kind of offer.
So Mitch,
go ahead, Camberley.
Question. Given that the basis for where we're doing all the AI work is on Kubernetes platform and OpenShift platform. And that, once we develop a model, that's got to be implemented with an application that's going on. So I'm going to take this model, I may be integrating it with my customer service operation, or I may be integrating it with a website kind of capabilities, those kind of things. How does that, I'm not a developer, so I don't know the answer to this. How does that come together? Because now we're doing developers plus this piece of it that's got to come out to what we're going to be offering in terms of the application.
Yeah, that's that kind of impedance mismatch that I was talking about. Developers think in terms of APIs, right? And here's how do we, they may not even think in terms of query languages or structured query languages. They think in terms of APIs and getting JSON structures back for answers from whatever source is providing that. And I think in the center of the DevOps world is the CI/CD process where all this comes together. And what's behind that is the repository, the code repository like GitHub or an Artifactory for a broader set of artifacts that are part of building all that software. So I think this has the potential to make that integration smoother. And that's what we need, because it's sort of like when you meet at the junction in the road, but nobody knows who's going to go first to enter the lane. It's like, how do we do this? And so there is that impedance mismatch. And I think that's, if you can package AI I actually wrote a paper for one of the container companies. And if you can package AI in a way that the platform and the DevOps engineer people already understand it, like, use this container package because that's what we use. Either it's in the cloud or we're using Docker, whatever it is. And do your AI development that way, package your AI development that way through testing, through feature development, et cetera, in as it merges into the pipeline. I think that's what we're working on. And to Mike's point, it's not going to be, oh, great, we got this tool, and so it's solved. It's never the tool. It's always the process and how we work together. But that's that intersection that I think you nailed it, Camberley.
Alan, are all the DevOps companies going to buy MLOps platforms from here?
I think a lot of them already have or have developed it internally. But here's my point. I think they're already. So I was at the last Swamp Up with JFrog, and they already had some Gen AI stuff that worked within your IDE that provided both security, like some X-ray stuff, and some other code testing in there. So, all of the DevOps platform players have jumped on the AI to do coding. When I look at this MLOps play, this is out of the movie The Graduate, right? I got 2 words for you: platform engineering. That's what this is about.
Was that in the movie? I don't remember.
Well, it was plastic, but close enough.
Oh, okay.
Mrs. Robinson. Platform engineering.
He's older than you, Alan. It's older than me. It's older. Come on.
But I just like to bring it to a new generation. What can I say? But there's some great music from that one too. Platform engineering, because that is where the action is right now too, right? It's not enough just to have your DevOps teams, and no one wants to overload the developers with yet more tasks. But can we get those platform engineers to, gather information, get this platform set up to let those developers do what developers like to do, and that is to develop, to code. Developers are spending 11 to 25% of their time only on coding. This can help them spend more time coding, and that is the goal of a lot of these platforms.
It's going to be very well received, I think.
I agree. Looking forward to it more. But guys, look, we're probably out of time here again on Techstrong Gang. But you know what? The fun doesn't end. We've got a full Friday lineup of Techstrong TV stuff coming at you, of programming coming at you. And I will just remind you that in the coming weeks, you will be able to see Camberley and Stephen Dickens and Krista on the Infrastructure Matters podcast here on Techstrong TV, as well as we hope real soon Cory Johnson's deep dives into earnings and other information here on Techstrong TV. We've got 5 days of programming to fill up. It's probably about 20 to 25 hours a week of programming. So you will see more and more of it here on Techstrong TV. But for now, this is Alan Schimmel on behalf of the Techstrong Gang. Have a great weekend, everyone. Enjoy the rest of our Techstrong TV day.